Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this brand new JJ's One Man Podcast. So, a couple things to discuss. There's a lot that's been happening all over the place between the world of gaming, the world of entertainment with movies and TV. A lot of stuff's going down. Positive stuff for once. Thank God, right? It feels like, in at least a couple spots, there was like all this like bad news or like really dour news that was dropping here and there. But regardless, though, we got some good stuff to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about Mortal Kombat 1. We're going to talk some Star Wars game stuff, some good things happen with that, and everything else that's associated. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you leave a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. There's a lot of new content, including stuff on Mortal Kombat 1 and brand new stuff that's coming down the pipeline that I know you guys are going to love. Also, don't forget you could join my Discord server, which is linked in the description box down below, and also check out the Patreon page. There's a lot of exclusive content over on the Patreon. Just for $1, you get a ton of exclusive content related to games and everything else that we have here on the channel. So let's talk about some good stuff today. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mortal Kombat 1, little post-mortem, because if you haven't already seen, I did my review of Mortal Kombat 1 over on CFTV. It's a whole written review of the game. There's all the details and stuff that I get into it with my views on the game that you guys could check out now. And I also have been writing a ton of content related to Mortal Kombat 1 over on .esports. There is literally a lot of guides, a lot of news posts, and everything else that's related to MK1 over on there as well. So let's talk a little bit about this game review-wise. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun playing it, as you could tell, because I did so much content about this game. But overall, I'm always a big fan of Mortal Kombat. I've been with the series since the very beginning, since the very first game came out in the arcades, and I've just been playing all the games ever since, even the spin-offs, even the bad ones, including Mythologies, including Special Forces, all that jazz. But regardless, though, Mortal Kombat 1 is a great reboot/sequel of the series because a lot of the events in the story and the plot, which, by the way, NetherRealm Studios continues their winning streak with the stories in their fighting games. Like every single one is like at least an absolute banger. Even if you don't like elements of the story, you have to admit they're probably the one studio in the fighting game genre that does the absolute best narratives for a fighting game. Like hands down, it's not even close. Now, what is it? Tekken maybe comes close to it. Capcom is trying to at least get close to it with Street Fighter 6 or Street Fighter as a whole, but they are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. Like NetherRealm has just got it on lock when it comes to stories with fighting games. But besides that, Mortal Kombat 1 has a great presentation. Contrary to a lot of the stuff that's been going on with the Nintendo Switch version, I will say that the Nintendo Switch version of this game is something you should completely avoid. It is absolute ass. It is garbage. It is terrible. That is not the version you want to play this game. Get it either on the PlayStation 5 or on the Xbox Series X or on PC. You could say PC as well, but for me, I played it on PlayStation 5. That's what I've been spending the most time with this game. And the game is dope. The game is fun. It looks great. It sounds great. It's got a great story mode. It has a lot of content as far as the towers, with the single-player towers, as well as also multiplayer. Now, a couple of the things that I've mentioned, both in my review and I talked a little bit about it on TikTok, was that the multiplayer modes, they're good for what they are. They still need a couple quality of life things here and there as well as also some other modes. But there is one bug in the game that is not that good. That's really, it almost brings everything to a screeching halt, is this black screen bug when you go into online matches, either in the Combat League or in casuals. And what happens is that when you go to restart a match to continue on to like do a run back with someone, all of a sudden the screen just gets locked up into this black screen. And you have to end up restarting or going back to your dashboard, I should say, not restarting the console, but restarting the game as a whole in order to continue onward and continue what you were doing. And that's annoying. That's a real pain in the butt. It brings, like I said, everything to a screeching halt. But hopefully, probably within the next couple of weeks, if not a month or so, we'll get an update, if not a lot sooner, I would hope, to address something like that. But regardless, though, the game as a package is really good. The only other thing I can say that is probably a dour, and it's not even that much of a big deal because it comes down to personal preference, is the invasion mode. Now, the invasion mode, if you haven't like explored this or you haven't seen it with Mortal Kombat 1, because maybe you haven't played the game or you haven't seen enough of it, invasion mode is kind of like, like this game board type of mode. It reminds me a little bit of like some of the single player content that you got from Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. If you guys remember this, there was like a tutorial / like campaign that you could play through there that was very different than the towers, that took you through like an original story or like some nonsensical story that wasn't canon to what was going on with Deadly Alliance, that it would take you through like different challenges and different tutorials. This is what this mode kind of reminds me of. Only the difference here is that not only is there multiple locations you get to visit, like multiple game boards, but there's also an original story that's non-canon that ties into like this online component where they involve seasons of content coming to Mortal Kombat 1. And in like practice on paper, it sounds good. In execution, unfortunately, it could be a little monotonous. It could be a little boring for some people. It does take a long time, I will admit. If anything, besides the story mode, the most time I spent playing Mortal Kombat 1 was probably in invasion mode, because I at least wanted to get to the end, which is like this big final battle against a variant of Scorpion. It ties into the whole storyline about like, alternate realities and stuff within Mortal Kombat going on, at least in the current moment. But as far as a game mode, it sounds ambitious. There's a lot of stuff in it. You could get a lot of rewards, a lot of unlockables within invasion mode, but you're going to be spending a lot of time with it, and you might get bored, and you might get a little annoyed because it just feels very monotonous. It feels almost very routine more than anything else. Not a bad garbage mode by design, but still, it could be tweaked a little bit to maybe like make it a little bit more fun. I know there's going to be more content with Season 2 coming down the line whenever they decide to update it. I think it's like 45 days from now or so, maybe a little bit longer when we actually get new content for it. But you could complete the entire invasion mode right now. It's just going to take you a while. So whenever they change it up, maybe it'll get a little bit more interesting. Anyway, besides that, there is a lot of unlockables. There is the cameo fighters that you can unlock, as well as also, choose right before a battle to help assist you. They remind me of the assist of Marvel vs. Capcom, which is totally cool, but cameos act like a little bit differently here. They give you assist moves, but they also have fatalities and brutalities with them, which is nice, which is pretty cool. So they're part of the fights, but they're not the central focus. The central focus keeps on the original two challengers that are fighting each other, which is great. But it's a nice extra layer to kind of mix things up and add a little freshness to the Mortal Kombat formula. I will say, though, and I forgot to mention this before, there is a lot of nods and a lot of fan service to the 3D era of Mortal Kombat. Like, there's got references to the Deadly Alliance. Shijinko from Mortal Kombat Deception is in this game. The Dragon Army is in this game that's mentioned and talked about. There's also Armageddon. If you've played Mortal Kombat Armageddon, there's a whole big, like, giant nod towards the end of the game of MK1 that's directly a reference to that. There's a lot of love for that 3D era of Mortal Kombat. And it kind of makes sense, too, because the original, MK9, MK10, and MK11, there was a lot more references to like the original trilogy of games, of Mortal Kombat games, and the movie, by the way, because MK11 had a lot of like, skins and nods, and even cast the original actor that played Shang Tsung in the original MK movie in that game. But with this one, this is all about the 3D era, which is pretty cool, which is nice because there's a little something for everybody. So no matter what era you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, there's a little something there for you, which I like. I think it's pretty dope. And then, of course, I have to mention, they got Jean-Claude Van Damme to be part of this game. So if you got the combat pack, you could actually have that alternate skin for Johnny Cage, and he sounds like Jean-Claude Van Damme. He looks like JVD. It's pretty cool. It's dope. It's a full circle moment for that series. But as a whole, to kind of wrap that up, I like Mortal Kombat 1. I think it's great. It's not the best fighting game of this year, I will say. I still think Street Fighter 6 is probably the better fighting game as a package, even though I think that MK1 has the better story, has the better amount of content, I would say, at least at the current moment, in comparison to Street Fighter 6. I just think that Street Fighter 6 you're going to be playing more often, especially with some of the things that I mentioned that aren't that great about MK1 in comparison to that game. So regardless, though, fighting game fans are eating really good. There's a lot of stuff happening for y'all because I didn't even mention the anime games that have been coming out, all stuff going on with Guilty Gear. You got Tekken 8 over the horizon. Like, I'm surprised we haven't heard anything from like Soul Calibur or maybe Virtual Fighter at some point. I would not be surprised if those series start making a resurgence as well, because there's a lot of big fighting games that are happening right now and the genre is doing very, very good. So besides that, let's talk a little bit about some Star Wars stuff to switch gears. So we got two big things that have been happening with Star Wars. Outside of Ahsoka, which has been phenomenal. It's been so much fun to watch Star Wars Ahsoka on Disney+. I've talked about it on TikTok. I've talked about it on Twitter and a whole bunch of other places. I'm having a ball with that show. Everybody's excited to watch that show. But I want to talk specifically about game stuff. Two things in particular. Number one, we got some more details about Star Wars Eclipse that came out not too long ago, which is kind of like, obviously, it's like obvious news, but it's stuff that at least has been talked about in some official capacity, which specifically with Star Wars Eclipse, is that the game is still around. Quantic Dream is still making it. They're still doing things. They're still simmering with it, as was told by, I believe it was like the VP of Quantic Dream was talking to IGN over in the Tokyo Game Show, where they asked her about it, and she said like, yeah, like we're still working on it. Like, have patience. It's cooking. It's simmering. It'll be done when it's done. But out of that whole interview and out of that discussion also came out that the game is not going to have any game over screens. Much like other games from Quantic Dream, like Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls. You know, those games, I don't remember them really having a game over screen as far as I know. I've played all those games and I don't remember that coming up. But at least it's nice to know that, like, no matter what happens in the narrative of Star Wars Eclipse, it's going to continue going on with the narrative. So basically, you could probably play through this game multiple times and get a bunch of different endings, a bunch of different outcomes and permutations with some of the events that go on within the narrative or within the story. So to me, that's pretty cool. Now, if you didn't already know, Star Wars Eclipse takes place during the High Republic era. This is about a couple hundred years prior to the start of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So we still have Yoda in there. We still have the Jedi Order. We still have the Republic. We have a whole bunch of new enemies that are going on. They haven't really detailed a lot of story beats for the game. I know that there were some reports, I believe, from Bloomberg and Jason Schreier and a few others that talked about story elements, but nothing really concrete confirmed yet. Like, I want them, or at least Quantic Dream at some point, to come out with a story trailer, not just like similar to the reveal trailer, but give us like an idea of like what this story is going to be. Like, who are the main players? Who are the main bad guys? What's going on with the Republic at the current moment? And what are we going to be doing? Okay, because I've seen other things like rumors and reports here and there about some gameplay elements saying that this is going to be the more action-oriented of the Quantic Dream titles that they've developed, which sounds cool, but again, not really confirmed yet because this game has been in development for so long. And if you don't remember, this game actually, its development was halted a little bit because of all the craziness that was going on behind the scenes over at Quantic Dream. They had a lawsuit they had to deal with over in the EU. There's a whole bunch of stuff that people reported on. I'm not going to get into it, but if you want to know about that stuff, it's everywhere. It's on every website. Even the IGN article about the Tokyo Game Show interview mentions that, which to me personally, I think that's maybe in poor taste, but if you're reporting news that's kind of related to it, you know, it's kind of related to the studio, you could get away with that. But regardless though, there was a lot that was happening. So this game's development got pushed back a bit, but it's back on track. And hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime soon, we get to actually see the game in another official capacity, give us some more insight of what it's all about. So that's one Star Wars thing, right? The other Star Wars thing I want to talk about is this stuff about the Star Wars Jedi series from Respawn Entertainment. Our boy, our man, Cameron Monaghan, okay, who plays Cal Kestis over in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, by the way, which is good. If you haven't seen my review of Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order, there are 2 video reviews on the channel right now that you guys could go watch after this podcast, of course. But check it out. I'll probably have it linked at the end of this video here, or this podcast. But a lot of stuff going on with that because we got official confirmation, which I don't know if he was supposed to do or not. Cameron Monaghan says that they're already in production with the 3rd game of the Jedi series. So basically the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Survivor is already in the works. They're already cooking it, which is good. He was on stage, I believe it's Ocala Comic-Con, I believe, for 2023, not that long ago. And he was speaking on a panel with his co-star that played Marin in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. And he came out and said, like, yeah, we're already starting to do the game. We're already working on it. Hopefully it's dope and hopefully you guys like it. Not really much to go off from, but at least, you know, there is that confirmation from him directly that the game is already being made. This is not like new news. It's not anything that's like shocking, but it's something that we've known for a while that was coming at some point. Because remember, I think it's Sid Atsuman, I think I pronounced his name right, but the director of the game for both Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, he's talked about a few times where he wanted to make a trilogy. Like, this has been known for years, I think, at this point. And recently, by the way, he left EA and left Respawn to go do some other ventures that he was doing. And it was an amicable split. It wasn't like it was drama or anything like that. But the people over at Respawn, they decided to reshuffle around a little bit, take up some of the work that's left over by him for whatever the 3rd game is going to be, which is good because at least you still know that despite him leaving, it's still the core team at Respawn that worked on those first 2 games that are going to be doing the 3rd game. So it could be anything that changes it a little bit, but still, at least we know now that a 3rd game is over the horizon, that it's coming. We don't know what it's called. We don't know what it's going to entail. From when I was writing about this earlier today, actually, I was writing about this announcement or this news, and I kept saying, like, okay, so right now, currently with Jedi Survivor, at the conclusion of that game, we're in the time frame of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Disney Plus series, which is about 5 or so years, maybe about, yeah, it was about 5, maybe, yeah. Actually, no, correction. It's about 10 years prior to Star Wars A New Hope, I want to say. Because Rogue One is right when a Star Wars A New Hope happens, like right at the beginning of that movie. But also, it's about 10 years prior to that. And then 10 years prior to that was Revenge of the Sith. And Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So, with this game, Jedi Fallen Order takes place 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. And then after that, 5 years is when Jedi Survivor takes place. So this puts it right on that track with Obi-Wan Kenobi. So what happens now with Jedi Survivor going forward? What happens after that? When is the time frame where we're going to be picking up with Cal Kestis and Merrin, and also the little girl that they picked up, which is what was it? I guess they adopted at this point because they went to that new planet and they probably more than likely are like hanging out over there. We don't know what's going on afterwards. We won't know when we're actually going to be picking this up. Maybe this picks up, or whatever this sequel is, picks up around the time of Rogue One or just before then. Because when you start getting closer to the timeline of the original trilogy, that's when things get very dicey. And that's when you start running into a lot of problems and probably a lot of restrictions with canon. Because at some point, there has to be a case made, or at least things have to fall in line, where Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi are literally the last Jedi, along with Yoda, the last Jedi running around. And then, of course, asterisk mark to that, with Ahsoka running around too, because she's in hiding. So with Cal Kestis, he either has to be in hiding or he has to be killed, which is, as morbid as that might sound, it still has to fall in line within the canon of the original Star Wars trilogy. So what could be going on with Cal Kestis? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think that Disney is going to miss out on the opportunity to bring Cameron Monaghan into live action with Cal Kestis. So there has to be some sort of explanation that takes him off the board from our original trilogy timeline, where he's busy or he's in some other faraway place, like the new planet that he went to at the end of that game. So who knows what could go down? Because I'm excited. At least we know this third game is coming. At least we could speculate, we could theorize what's going to happen, where we're going to go from there. And yeah, I can't wait to see it. I really can't wait to see it. I really enjoyed Jedi Survivor, despite its rocky start when it first came out, because some people had a lot of bugs and glitches they had to deal with. It was a pretty rocky, rough release. But when I played it for review before and after the patches came out, I really enjoyed it. I didn't run into a lot of problems, and I had a great time overall. So a lot of other people did as well. So regardless, though, that's all I got for you guys right now, because there's been other things happening. Obviously, we have the strike stuff still going on. That might actually change up very soon, because as of yesterday, last night, technically this morning, they reached some sort of tentative agreement for the strikes for the WGA. And then, now after that, now they got to figure out the SAG-AFTRA strike stuff. But that might be coming to an end soon, and we might be getting more details about some other movies and other projects on TV. Maybe some more Star Wars stuff with Lucasfilm and Disney, because I know we've talked about, or at least we've mentioned here before, the stuff with the Lando show. There's all the stuff going on with Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which we know nothing about really. They've been mad quiet. The Acolyte, which is another thing that we got to find out more about. I'm hoping at least after these strikes, we get a trailer for that thing, because there was one shown at Star Wars Celebration, but nothing released to the general public. And I want to know what that whole show is all about, as far as the tone and where we're going for, because a lot of word of mouth on the Acolyte hasn't been all that great, but I'm at least, reserving my judgment to at least see what it's like when I finally look at a trailer and see where I stand on it. On top of that, too, there's all the movie stuff, but there's a lot of unknowns at the moment. There's a lot of speculation. I want to talk about facts. I want to at least discuss facts and stuff that is officially known whenever it becomes known at that point. So anyway, let me know your thoughts about all this stuff that I touched on in the comment section down below. Are you excited for some of the new stuff coming with Star Wars as far as the games are concerned? Are you excited about Mortal Kombat 1? Have you been playing it lately? What did you think of all the reviews about it? Talk to me about that stuff down below in the comment section. Leave a like on this episode of the podcast, on the video on YouTube if you can. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so for more content that's coming very soon, and all the great content and reviews that are up on the channel right now. That being said, I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.